Hi, I'm checking if this is working. We're going to start very shortly, and I wanted to know if you could see me and hear me. If you would comment and say hello, that would be wonderful to know that um, that you're there. And um, so so please say hello if you're watching, and if you want to say where you're watching from, that would be really great as well. But just to know if somebody can hear me and see me, um, and then we'll get started in a couple of minutes. I Oh, sorry. So I've got Tammy on hold to come and join us, and she says hi from Petrico in the private chat. Oh, great! I see people here. Wonderful. Hello, Jessica, Samantha. Hi. Hello, Frank and Lisa, Dub. Oh, wonderful. Oh, Karen. Yay, from Wati, from Nashville. Wonderful. From Petrico. Selena. Hi. Oh, great. My mom's sister are here. I can hear you and see you well. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for taking the time. We are so happy to have you. I'm so looking forward to this. Hi, Ian. Oh, great. Okay. Hello, Lara. Wonderful. So this event is being co-hosted with Heritage House Publishing, with the Yellowknife Bookseller, with the Clicho. So we all welcome you greatly, and I'm so happy to be here. I will, okay, it's 7 o'clock. So I will leave you with a little slideshow of the canoe trip. It's the audio will be from the Jimmy Bruno drummers and Jimmy Bruno School, and the photos are from images that I took on the Trails of Our Ancestors canoe trip. So I'm going to leave you with that, and then we'll begin. Colleen, wonderful. Oh, Shawinigan Lake, Lenore, great. Dean, hi. Okay, thank you for being here. Here we go. Oop, I lost you. Okay.
Hi, Nadine.
Hi, Tammy.
Hi, everyone. We'd like to thank you for joining us on this special evening as we celebrate Nadine and her newest accomplishment, being an author of a pretty exciting, very special story, a little new book. My name is Tammy Steinwand de Chambeau, and I'm the director for the Department of Culture and Lands Protection with the Clinchon government. And it's through my work that I first met Nadine. It was at the elders gathering in Wekwati last fall. And shortly after that, she shared with me the rough draft of the story. And it's quite exciting now today to be celebrating it and sharing it with all of you. And today is all about Nadine and all of her hard work. So I just want to say thank you, everybody, for joining in and calling in. If you have your phones with you, text others to ask them to join the call and to be a part of the celebration. So today, I just want to remind everyone too that as listeners, if you can share with us, some of you have done so already, where you're from. We'd like to get a bit of a scan of how far this book launch has reached. So far, I can see from Victoria, Ontario, Northwest Territories, Wati, Clinchon region, the United States. So let's keep it going. So if people leave a comment or ask a question, we have Kiana standing by to put people's names in a draw for the book. So please keep that coming and participate, help us celebrate. Don't forget to say where you're from as well. So today we're celebrating Nadine, Neema. Nadine began working in Wekwati in Northwest Territories in 1999 as the band manager in Wekwati. She then worked with the negotiating team leading up to the Clinchon government under Chief Negotiator John B. Zoe. Afterwards, she started a career as a singer-songwriter, but has maintained a strong bond with the community of Wekwati through helping with workshops and other special projects over the years. So Nadine has also been invited, and that, I was telling her yesterday, I think it was, that is a big honor to be invited and to take part in one of our special canoe trips. It's an annual event. So to be a part of the Trails of Our Ancestors canoe trip is quite special. And she has taken part in 2 canoe trips. So since then and all of her work, she has become like a family member to many people in Wekwati. So here is our newest author, Nadine Neema.
Masi. Masi. So friends from Wekwati, please send comments so I could see that you're there. Masi Cho. I would like to thank you, Tammy, for being here with me, and thank all of you for being here. I want to start by acknowledging that I'm broadcasting from the unceded lands of the Kanien'kehá:ka Nation. Tiohtià:ke, or Montreal, is historically known as a gathering place for many First Nations, and I respect and hope to honor that tradition. I also want to acknowledge the elders from Wekwati that shared their stories with me when I was living there in the late 90s and early 2000s, most of whom have passed on, but whose stories are in my book. And I'm very grateful and honored for all of their teachings. So I want to do a few more thank yous before we continue. I want to thank especially the people of Wekwati, the youth in Wekwati who have inspired this story, all of the people who took me in over 20 years ago and made me feel like family. Thank you, Masi. Thank you to the elders there. Thank you to Joseph Judas, who was the chief while I was the band manager, who wrote the foreword to this story. I want to thank also Heritage House, everybody at Heritage House Publishing who are online now, especially Leslie, Kenny, and Lara Cordic. Thank you so much. Thank you to Archie Beaverho, who, this is the painting, oops, over here behind me. That one with the canoe. Everything is backwards on this. I want to thank Archie Beaverho, who did the painting for the cover and all of the illustrations inside the book. It was really a joy and pleasure to work with him. And to the Yellowknife bookseller who's co-hosting this event, thank you. And to all of the Clicho, thank you very much. So I guess I will, will I do anything now, Tammy?
No. So Nadine, this is the first book that you have written, and I really find this book to be extra special, maybe because it's of the Chinchon people, my people, and of our region. And I just feel that ever since when I was at university and doing a history paper, and I found very little on our people. So now when things like this, resources come out, especially that can be used in the school, for me, it's quite exciting. So to find this resource available now for young people to read, and also for them, like how it's written, how you've captured it, the context, the topics that are in there, the people it portrays, the Chinchon people, the teachings, it just makes it such a beautiful story. So I just wanted to say again, Nadine, thank you for that. And if you don't mind, maybe you can start by sharing a little bit of the beginning.
Sure. I guess I'll do a quick overview of just to set the context. The story takes place, it's a young girl who's 11 years old, and she's been essentially adopted by the community of Wekwiti. So Wekwiti is a community that's about 200 kilometers north of Yellowknife. So you can see Yellowknife at the bottom of this map and how far up Wekwiti is. And so the four Clicho communities are Wekwiti, Gemiti, Wati, and Betchako. And the girl goes on the Trails of Our Ancestors canoe trip from Wekwiti, and you can see down the path to Betchako. It's about a 10-day canoe trip. And so she goes on this canoe trip and through for the first time, and it's part fiction and part true, the story. And there's a lot of stories that I was saying were told that the elders shared with me that are shared in this story. And then there's also, she learns about the traditional way of life. She learns about the Clicho agreement. And she also has, it's like a rite of passage for her. So she has her kind of fictional story between her and her friends and their journey through. So I'll read the first few pages of the book. I don't want to go, I yelled. I don't want to go, I yelled at my mom this morning after she told me to hurry up and get dressed. You say that now, but you'll see, it'll do you good. She's been saying that for weeks and I'm sick of hearing it. She's making me go on this canoe trip. She says I've been spending too much time moping around the house and staring at screens, but I don't feel like spending 10 days disconnected from everything. I finished getting ready and followed Mom up the road and down the long wooden steps to the dock, dragging my feet the whole way. I was cold and tired. It's the middle of summer, but I had to wear a sweatshirt and rain jackets. Thick cloud filled the sky as far as I could see. 12 canoes lined the shore of the vast Snare Lake. People were packing the canoes with ever big bags of clothes, tents, and enough food to last us the trip. The whole town had come down to wish us well. About 100 people gathered around the shore. This is a very important journey you'll be taking, said Mom. She put her hands on my shoulders and leaned down to look at me. She has these sparkling bluish-green eyes. I've never seen a color quite like them. When she looks at me, it feels like she's peering into my soul. Layla's grandparents will guide the way. Listen and watch carefully and you'll learn a lot. You will be traveling the trails of the Clicho ancestors, the trails they've walked and paddled for thousands of years. They say if you listen carefully, you might still hear them singing. I didn't want to listen. I didn't want to care. I wanted to stay mad at my mom and walk away without saying goodbye. I wanted her to feel bad. I wanted to stay home watching movies, not be out here in the cold. But I'm going to miss her. And deep down, I know she just wants what's best for me. So I hugged her tightly, burying my face in her long wavy hair and taking in her scent. Her skin is so soft, her arms wrapped around me like a warm blanket. Then I suddenly pulled away when I felt tears coming. This will be my first time away from my mom for so long, and my first time sleeping out on the land since Uncle Joe died.
Nadine, in our region, we've been very lucky that we've been able to have the annual canoe trip since the 90s, I believe it was. So many people have had the privilege of participating in at least one canoe trip along the trails of our ancestors. Myself, I've had the privilege of participating in a few, and each was very special in its own way and even spiritual. Were the 2 canoe trips that you completed spiritual experiences for you as well? And if so, how?
Very much so. I think they're probably one of the most spiritual experiences I've had, one of the most holistic experiences I've ever had. So I've done many different things I've done 10-day meditation retreats, and I've done yoga retreats, and I've traveled around the world, and I've done so many different things, experiences, and things to have kind of spiritual experiences. It's one of the quests I've had most in life, let's say. And the Trails of Our Ancestors has been one of the most profound experiences of them all, because it just combines everything. It's like it combines the meditation of paddling hour after hour and portaging and just doing the same repetitive things, but in a way that is so connected to the land and to the earth and to where we come from, and amidst this incredible untouched beauty and raw land, and knowing that we're traveling the trails that so many people traveled for so long, the same trails and hearing the stories at night of how it used to be, and the community aspect of it as well, and the physical and mental strength of going through it. It isn't an easy thing either. So it was very, very, very spiritual, very, very profound experience for me. There's a whole kind of spiritual thing that goes through this book as well. I guess the Wekwati graveyard is a place that I got to know quite well, because we used to do a lot of picnics there when I lived in the community. And leaving Wekwati on the canoe trip on the way to Betchako, our first stop was the Wekwati graveyard, where we stopped to pay respects to the people that have passed and to pray for a safe journey. And so I'll read a passage about that first stop that we do.
Sure.
In the middle of the graveyard is the prophet's grave. In the center is a tree surrounded by an unstained wooden fence, the same height as the others. The pickets of the fence are thin and circular instead of rectangular like the other ones. We were standing around the grave when Layla started talking. I could tell it was an interesting story, but before she could go on, everyone gathered around to pray. The chief talked for a while in Clicho. Then he began the rosary and everyone joined in. That went on for a bit, the chief praying and everyone responding. It's so musical the way they pray. Then everybody went quiet and bowed their heads. I'm not sure what people say in these silent prayers. Layla started whispering. My mom told me that years ago there was a man who helped a lot of people around here. Alice and I huddled in closer. They say the man had visions of a rosary long before the priests came and converted our people. They say he used to sing and his wife would dance, and that his singing made the stars dance too. She motioned to the tree at the center of the grave. You see how the bottom branches are tiny? Alice and I looked at the bottom of the tree. Then we looked up to the top and back down. We both nodded. The top of the tree looks like a pretty Christmas tree, whispered Alice, but the bottom looks like a small upside-down awkward one. Yeah, the tree almost looks like a cross, I said, staring at it with my head tilted sideways. Shh! I felt someone tapping my shoulder. It was Layla's grandma. Everyone else still had their heads down. Prayer, she said, then bowed her head again. We put our heads down too. I wish I could hear what people are thinking in these moments. After about a minute, I looked up at Layla, really wanting to know the end of the story. She shook her head. I'd have to wait.
Wow, that's beautiful. We have a question from Mary Tiger, and it's the same question that I have as well. Nadine, what inspired you to tell your story through the writing of a book?
Well, there's a long answer and a short answer. The very short answer is that the youth of the canoe trip in 2013 inspired me to write this story. But I guess I should backtrack a little bit to say why, how this first came about. So in 2005, I was part of I was in Betchoko for the celebrations of the effective date. And at the end of that week, I wrote an article that appeared in News North, and it basically talked about the Clicho Agreement. It talked about the effective date and the celebrations surrounding it. And so years later, when I started an artistic career and I was talking to John B., I said, you know, I'd love to collaborate and do something. And he said, well, why don't you start by trying to write a children's story based on the article that you wrote to teach our youth about this important part in history. And I loved the idea, but I had no idea how I was going to do it because it was, you know, an article for adults, and I didn't know how I was going to convert that into something that would interest young people. And so I sat with it for a couple of years, I think. And in 2012, I was invited on the canoe trip for my first time. And when I did those trails, that journey actually ended up being a journey with just one canoe of 8 people because we left after everybody else and we meant to catch up and never did. So it was a journey that was incredibly connected to the land and but I realized on that trip that I think it would be a good way to tell the story. So the following year when I went back, I went with all of the people of Wekwiti down to Betchoko, and I really observed the youth. I had in mind that this was going to be how I would tell the story, and I observed the ones who were there for their first time on the trip and how they grew and how they learned and how they started the trip as, you know, as children, and in a way that the journey was a rite of passage, and they grew and learned so much from it. And I watched the way that they interacted with the elders and the way that they learned from them. And that was a huge part of what inspired this story. As well as the stories I was talking about from the elders. So in my last part of being when I was the band manager in Wekwiti, I bought a video camera, and I thought it would be good to film the elders that were there at the time about how the community started, because they were the ones that started the community. And so I asked them a lot of questions, and I've since given the recordings back to Wekwiti, but I wanted to do something to share those stories. And so they also inspire a lot of the book because they're part of the stories that are told by Layla's grandparents during the evening campfires.
Mm-hmm. I think we're at the time for our first draw.
Okay, great. So it's over here. So the first draw is basically what we said in the invitation, which is anybody who wrote that they were going in the invitation. Their names are here in a bowl. And so my niece Kiana is standing by, and she's noting all the people that are writing comments. I'm not able to see them at the moment because when I have the illustrations, the comments are in the background, but she's noting everybody for the next draw. But this draw is the people that said that they were going, and I will pick a name. And if you're here, please comment, and you will win the first book. You have to be here to win. So Adrian Wills, are you here? If you're here, please say that you're here, Adrian Wills, and you will. Oh wow, I just popped over.
That's a great question.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so Adrian Wills, I don't think. So the next one here that I've just pulled is Deb Julian. Deb Julian, are you here? We'll give a moment, and if okay. Jessica Painter, or Payne. Oh, Kiana, you're writing. Are you here? I'm going to get to somebody who's here. Okay, David Gutnick, are you here? Oh, thank you, David. Hi, Roberta. Hi, Andre. Hi, Shira. David Gutnick, are you here? Post a comment if you are, otherwise I'm picking another name. Tammy, this isn't going very well.
Okay, try again.
Oh, David commented. Okay, thank you, Kiana. What's that? Okay, great. So David, winner of the first book. Wonderful.
Okay, that's great.
Okay. So
I'd like to ask a question relating to the characters, and then we'll come to Lenore's question as well. So the first one I'd like to ask you, Nadine, is how did you come to think of the characters? Are any of the characters real-life people from the community of Wekwiti, or even from your own family?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, they're all great questions. Yes, definitely people from the community and people from my family have inspired the characters. There's no one character that's one person, but there are parts of people that are found. So a lot of the youth that were on that canoe trip in 2013 are the ones that inspired so the main character is a young 11-year-old girl, and there's her two best friends and the young cousin. Those four characters are very much inspired by the youth that were on the trip. The Uncle Joe that passed away, that was very close to her, is inspired partly by, I lost my uncle when I was very young, and so a lot of the emotions that I had towards that come through in the book. But I named him Uncle Joe after Joe Boleyn from the community, who passed away while I was there and who took me on a lot of fishing trips in my early days. So that was another inspiration. And then there's a little boy, the little Kyle, there was a little boy on the canoe trip that inspired the young character in this book. But then things that my son said, so my son had this obsession with the moon for a while. And so those things that he would say to me came through as part of the conversation in this child as well. So it's a mix of a lot of different people that come through.
I think if we go to Lenore's question, did you have difficulty creating or writing in the voice of a young person?
Initially, I did. It was very important for me to write in the voice of a young person, because if the book was going to be for young people, then I felt that I needed to write from that voice so that it wasn't like I was talking down to them. So I was determined that I was going to do that. Initially, I found it challenging, and I actually went back and read some books that I had read when I was younger. I took this master class by Judy Blume, and then I went back and read some of her books, and then I read some of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books, and I went back. I spent a couple of weeks reading a lot of books that are written for children of this age group so that I could get into that mindset and into that voice. And then I also thought a lot about the youth that were on the canoe trip and the way that they speak, and to try and get that voice as well. So it was initially challenging, but I think when I got it, I was kind of in this world, and then it became a pleasure to do it, because then it flowed more. But it took a while for it to get there.
You mentioned about your son and how he in his discussions and talk with you, talked a little bit about the sun and moon.
Yeah.
So there is a little short but sweet passage about the sun and moon in your story. Can you read that to us, please?
Sure. Okay, so he says, so then we ran around the island on the soft cushion of moss. Little Kyle noticed that the moon was already in the sky. Look at the moon, he said. Why are the moon and the sun in the sky at the same time? Auntie Rosaline answered, the moon and the sun are secretly in love. They are very shy, and in order not to show their love, one appears during the day and the other during the night. But sometimes they cannot resist, and they need to look at each other's faces, so they both come out together.
That's beautiful. Yeah. As a singer-songwriter, you have a gift for writing songs. About 20 years ago, you wrote a song for the community of Wekwati. Would you mind sharing that song with us?
I would love to. So the song is called Ayuwole. And in the very beginning, for the people here who don't speak Klicho, in the very beginning I say Ayuwole and Masi from your Nitle Gedi Jian. So Nitle Gedi is it's like a secretary. It's the name for the work that I was doing, and Jian means crazy. So okay, so here it goes. Hine, hine, hey, hine, hey, hine, Ayuwole and Masi from your Nitle Gedi Jian shared your stories, your friendship, your food and Nadine. Taught me to think differently, showed me a new way to see. I miss you all, Sadie of Wekwati. Familiar, friendly faces, enormous open spaces, higher than the tree line, the barren land places. Skidoos ride faster than the train, rushing all the way to rain. The endless weeks without a plane, light all night and tiny days. A piece of bone with bone marrow, someone yelling, Nekwon, Nekwon! Yeah, Ekwon! Endless nights of Dagawo. Miniature coniferous trees, golden green leaves, sky-high snowbanks, frozen water tanks, days of picking blueberries. The sound of crystal crackling, of the crashing, breaking ice, feeding the fire, and the ever-nice northern lights. But it's frightening how it's changing at the speed of lightning. From no shower or power in the community to a decade later of internet and satellite TV. Ayuele and Masi, and may each of us be strong like two people and wise as Chief Mofri. May our elders guide us through life's sacred journey, and may we all come together in our human unity.
Wow, that was beautiful. What a beautiful tribute to the community of Wekwati and all the people there. You've included so many aspects, and you can just see the seasons, like talking about the ice and berry picking and everything. Wow, I love it. That's such a beautiful song. There's a
I
question.
always feel a little bad when I play it because Joseph Judas once told me, ever since you wrote that song about the caribou, there's no more caribou here. So whenever I think about that, I'm like,
Maybe they'll start to come back now.
exactly, please.
Yeah. There's a question here, again from Lenore. She asked, how did writing the book compare with your songwriting?
That's a difficult question. Somebody asked me that the other day, and I had never thought about it. So now I've thought about it a little bit. I think it's quite different. In some ways I find it much more challenging to write a book, and in other ways I find it somewhat easier. I think it's the initial part of writing a book is a lot more daunting because it's such a bigger task that it feels like it took me so long to even start writing it, and even the process it takes time. Finding the right voice, but a lot of those things happen in songwriting as well. I find them quite different. I find with a book, once I get into the flow can it's kind of, I can sit down and write and you know, until I get to the editing process. So in that way, once I get into the flow, it gets easier. But it's a lot more challenging, I find, to edit a book than a song. It's interesting. To edit a song is more challenging in some ways because you have to really have the right word for every word. But it's, you know, the song could be much more sort of images and stuff. With the book, it's harder. I like to edit something in one sitting. So a song, you could sit down and go through the whole song in one sitting. The book, to do that, I need a good 4 hours or 5 hours to really sit down and be able to. So it's I'm still thinking about that, comparing, because in some ways I find them two very different things. You know, they both entail writing, but it's kind of quite a different process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when we look back at the story that you've written, your book, there's a lot of mini stories or legends in there. Like for the passage you shared with the sun and the moon, I thought that could have been or is a legend from maybe another culture, or even of the Kincho culture, because there are stories like that similar. Are you in any of the characters in your book?
I think I probably, parts of me are definitely in some of the characters. The most obvious one to me is in the main character, the young girl Jules. Her search for understanding the creator and death, and that's something that I guess I've since I was very young, I started to question a lot, to try to understand what happens after we die, and to try and understand God more, and so I've I've always been very interested in spirituality and in prayer, and what does prayer mean, and how do I pray, and that would be the most obvious way, I think, that I would see myself in the character. Though there's probably a lot of things that have slipped through the cracks that I haven't noticed.
Is there a passage you would like to share from the book that does that?
Yeah, there is. So one of the things that the girl goes through is this kind of spiritual awakening herself and trying to understand. And there's a little passage in here. I just have to find it, where she attempts to pray for the first time. Like in the passage that I read earlier, you know, she says, I wish I knew what people were saying in these silent moments, because she's never really prayed in silently. And then there's a part in the story where they're in a camp and they weren't supposed to sleep there. And so people threw bones into the fire after they ate, and they ended up sleeping there. And so now she's very worried that the big animal is going to come to her tent, and she's in her tent alone, and she doesn't know what to do. She's quite terrified. So the other little thing to give you context is the passage I read about the prophet's tree. So there's a little thing that goes through the book about a branch that from the prophet's tree that becomes quite a special symbol in this book. So she says she's in her tent. I remember the branch. I grab it from my pocket and start rubbing it in my hand. My heart is racing. I feel sick to my stomach with fear. I want to run back to the fire, but I'm too scared to move. I begin to pray. I've never prayed on my own before. I'm not sure how to start. Dear Branch, I say. That sounds weird. Dear Uncle Joe, that's better, but I should include the Creator. Dear Creator, Uncle Joe, Branch, and all the ancestors watching over us, please don't let the big animal come into our camp tonight. Please keep us safe. I miss you, Uncle Joe. Good night. I feel a little better, but I still can't sleep. My breathing is heavy. I think about the songs of the ancestors. I rub the branch on my chest. That's where it hurts. I want to sing one of those songs to help protect me, but I don't know how it goes.
Wow. We were planning to do a draw here, but I think if it's okay with you, Nadine, we'll keep the two draws together for at the end. And I have another question for you. Why did you choose to tell the story through 11-year-old Jules?
Well, first I wanted, as I was saying before, I really wanted to tell the story through the eyes of a young girl, of a young person, so that the people reading it could feel more related to the character. Initially, I actually wrote it. The young girl was Clicho. She was from the community. My first couple of drafts, and I liked it. I thought it was really nice. But I thought about it a lot afterwards, and I decided to make it from the perspective of a young girl who's been more adopted into the community, similar to how I feel I've been, because it was a more authentic voice. It just felt like it was telling the story from a place that felt more real, because I'm not from the community. So I wanted the young girl to also be in a similar place, to tell the story from a voice that I felt sounded more genuine. So that's how that came about.
Mm-hmm. And in the story, the one thing that I really like going through it, because it really reminded me and brought me back to some of the trips that I have done. So along those trips, there's always different teachings depending on who you're traveling with, the elders that are there with you, sitting around the campfires in the evening, during break time in the canoe, you know, different things like that, where there's a lot of time for storytelling and sharing, and in that, the teachings. Can you share a passage from the book that has some of the teachings like that?
There's quite a few. Which one are you thinking about?
Around page 70, I like some of that information in there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Let me just switch over here so I could put a couple of illustrations with it. Later, Grandpa sat on a rock. Okay. Sorry, I tried to put things in order, but we've been jumping around, and now I'm jumping around. Is it? No. Here you go. These are all illustrations by Archie Beaverhoe that just while I'm thinking about it, they so the way that we worked, Archie and I, is it's thanks to Tammy that we met, and we actually never met in person. Everything was done by text and phone, and I sent him many. I had ideas for illustrations that I really wanted for certain passages that were based on photos that I took from photos from the slideshow that we saw at the beginning. So many of these images were based on photos that I had taken. And then when I didn't have photos, but I wanted the illustrations to come regularly, I would read him the passage, and he developed the illustrations. And then I hadn't thought about a cover. And when Archie really got to know the story after he did some 50 illustrations, he had the suggestion for what the cover should be, and he drew a sketch of it, and I sent it to the publisher, and we loved it. So he ended up doing the painting. So just wanted to explain a little bit about that. So back to the passage over here. Later, Grandpa sat on a rock and told the four of us stories about life in the old days. Life is easy now, he said. Whatever you need, you can get easily. Back then, it wasn't like that. It was hard to get things. We couldn't just go to the store whenever we wanted. We had to make our own caribou jackets and pants. We used the caribou hide from August because we knew it was thick and would keep us warm. We wore the fur on the inside so we wouldn't get cold. I sat quietly, listening carefully, interested in every detail. I didn't fidget or get bored once. Before we got power and fuel to heat the place, all we had was candles and lanterns. We made our own wood stoves with 45-gallon barrels. If we ran out of candles, we had to make our own with caribou fat. To get water in winter, we had to make a hole through the ice with chisel. It was hard to get food, too. We had to catch all of our food. We caught rabbits, fish, muskrat, caribou. He named a whole bunch of animals. Now we have store-bought meat and canned foods. Now you can just put a mattress down and go to sleep. Back then you needed to have caribou hide. The world has changed so much so fast, I thought. Mom says the whole world has.
Thank you for sharing that. Maybe it's time for another draw?
Sure. Kiana?
We'll do the two draws now, if that's okay. Okay,
great. So we're going to draw now. You know what I realized? I haven't even showed the book. So here is the book, everybody. I just wanted to show you. So I read this so many times on the screen and on printed paper. And the other day I was sitting here reading the actual, book copy for the first time. And it was like, wow, this. Hi, Tammy. Okay. So here are beautiful.
I had to show that.
Okay, so here I'm going to pick the first name. These are from the people who've been leaving comments. Thank you, everybody, for commenting. Many have gone through without me being able to have a look, so I can't wait to be able to do that afterwards. Thank you again for being here. So the first name is Frank Joseph Deschambault.
What do you know? That's my husband.
I swear I didn't plan it. All right. So that is the first winner. Congratulations, Frank. And the second. So I guess I'm not going to have to dig too deep to get your address. And the second one is Amy Ryan. Okay, great. Amy Ryan. Kiana was telling me that she knows who that is. Wonderful. Okay, so congratulations to both of you. You will be getting a book. Thank you. I was thinking, Tammy, when you were talking about before, when you were saying a passage that has a story, I was thinking about the one with the mittens and the. Do we have time for a little one?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So here it is. Okay. Let me see where that. Okay. So I will do this, and I don't remember what photo. Oh yeah. Okay. Nope. Later, we went back to my camp and sat around the fire next to Grandma. We listened to Grandpa talk about Chief Mofui, one of the greatest chiefs of all times. Once he started a story, he could talk all night. Every summer, some of us Clicho travel the trails of our ancestors, the same trails Chief Mofui and our ancestors walked for thousands of years, he said. In the old days, we traveled with dog teams. When we were traveling, our parents knew the good spots for fishing and hunting, and we would camp there because that's how we ate. It was really hard in those days. We had to get enough fish to feed the dogs too. Under their paws, they would get sores. We would make them little mittens out of caribou hide if they cut themselves on rocks. I was starting to feel sleepy. Grandpa continued. Some days, if we didn't get enough fish, we couldn't feed the dogs enough. If this happened too often, we would stay in the same place for a couple of nights to catch more fish and make sure the dogs ate and got stronger. Sometimes, when there were caribou up ahead, the dogs would notice even before we did. They would forget their paws hurting, and they would start running fast to catch up to the caribou. I lay down with my head on Grandma's lap and watched the fire. Grandpa started talking about how the annual gathering this year would be different. We will finally have our own government and become owners of our land, he said. I think I drifted off to sleep because I don't remember what came next. I dreamt I was walking the trails of my ancestors. We were singing and dancing, and we could fly.
Wow, that's beautiful. Nadine, do you have a message for the young people reading that are going to be reading the novel, young people in general? And what about Clinchon young people? What would you like to say to them, or if you're to give them a message?
I think the first would be to write your stories. There's so much richness in your culture and experiences, and I hope that this book inspires the youth to write their own stories down and share their stories. That would be the number one thing. I know that the trails of our ancestors is already quite something that happened. It's something that happens every year, and a lot of people go. But for those who haven't, I would say absolutely go to do those trails. It's such a wonderful way to learn about your history and the traditions, and so I hope that it inspires. And for other youth, I also encourage them to write their stories as well. And I hope the book inspires, and I hope the book educates also. There's a lot of, I think it's important, there's also a lot of teachings in the book that were passed to me that I've tried to pass on, and I hope that I was able to do that.
Wow, that's nice. I think another question that people are wondering, is there going to be a sequel?
I hope so. I think so. I guess we'll see. But when I chose the title "Journal of a Traveling Girl," the idea in my mind was that there would be different adventures of this traveling girl, that there would be different, there's a subtitle that we put in the book of this one called In the Footsteps of the Ancestors. And the idea was kind of that the journal of a traveling girl could have different adventures, and this was one of them. So I guess we'll see.
Mm-hmm. So it could be in another location, in another part of the world. Is that the idea?
I don't know. I'm not really clear on the idea, to be honest. I just feel like I love the idea of, I mean, I love writing. I find writing is a wonderful tool in so many ways. It's a wonderful healing tool. It's a wonderful tool for sharing, for educating. And I love the idea of writing for youth to both entertain and inspire and educate. And so it's something I would love to do more of.
Mm-hmm. Kiana, or Nadine, are there any questions that maybe I didn't get to? I just want to make sure that we get them in because we're almost at our time.
Kiana, are there any questions that you saw go by? What Clicho spiritual religion? Robert Dryneck, what Clicho spiritual religion did you experience? For me, the most spiritual parts of being with the Clicho was all of the ceremonies, all of the drum dances, the hand games, the feeding the fire, the being on the land. That to me was, I mean, I also went to church and I loved the way that the Clicho pray. It really is one of the most musical things. It's very, very beautiful. So I experienced all of it. I really kind of immersed myself in it. But for me, the drums is the one that the drums and the land are the two that really, really reach me in a very, very deep place. Like I go to a drum dance and I feel it at my very core. I remember one of the first drum dances I went to in Wekwiti. I was with a group of girls that I met that have become very close friends, and they said, "You go first." And I said, "Are you going to follow?" And they said, "Yeah, of course." And I went, and they didn't follow, and I did the whole dance, and nobody followed me, and I was there the whole time. And it was like I just kept going, and I kept going around in a circle, and nobody was following. Nobody was following. When the dance ended, I went and said, like, "What in the world?" And they said, "Well, you were dancing in the wrong direction." I learned that you always dance clockwise, but I can't help it. I hear the drums, and it's like I just want to go like again.
Mm-hmm. Even in the slideshow, the drum music that you chose, that's really upbeat and it's quite powerful. And you're right, it draws you in.
It does, and it just I feel it beating I feel it's like in my chest. It's really profound.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to put up some of the Clicho things that I have here, and I have a drum that was given to me when I left the community. It's at the lake cabin, but very, 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 very powerful. There's another question here that Kiana brought to me from Rachel Ann. Can you tell us what impacts you had living among the Clicho people? What impacts you had living among the Clicho people? Like how I was impacted by the Clicho, I guess is the question.
And that's how I read it too.
That's how you read it? Okay.
So one thing you shared clearly is spirituality. That's really helped you with that.
Absolutely, spirituality, the land connection. I mean, I've never been with people that are more connected to the land, and it made me so connected to the land. And the sense of observation that I learned. Like we'd go hunting, and I would, in the beginning be in my head, and the people would just spot the animal from like way far, and I was just amazed at how this presence of really being in the moment on the land, observing, was a big one. Living in community also. I mean, I lived in Wekwiti, which was a community of less than 200 people that you had to fly to get there. There's no roads, so it was really learned a lot about how to live in community and work things out no matter what. You are constantly in community know everybody that's around. So that was a big teaching as well. And then a lot of the just different teachings about living off the land, living together, the way of life, and so forth. But yes, it was a big one for sure.
Wekwati is our smallest Clinchon community, and probably it is the most northernly, and I would say probably still the most traditional. So if you wanted to be immersed in Clinchon culture, that would be one to be in, because it's small and communal and everybody helps each other. And like you're saying, because it's a fly-in, you learn to be with everybody, and it's almost like the whole community becomes your family.
Yeah, absolutely. I've noticed that there's people keep asking the question, and I think it's partly answered, but I don't know if it's always answered, about where to get the book. So I just want to say that the Yellowknife Bookseller is co-hosting this event and online. So if you live in the north, if you're in Yellowknife, please write to them, pick up your copy from there. I don't know how many are left, but they have signed copies as well. So definitely, if you're in the north, please get your copy from there. Otherwise, you can, if you're in Canada, you can ask your local bookseller. I have it also on my website, neema.ca. And I believe the Clicho online store is going to have it soon. And then there's also Indigo and Amazon. But support local and support the author. Yeah, that's just something that I saw go by. I'm wondering if there's any other questions before from the people. Do you see any? Oh, and the Yellowknife Bookseller do online orders and ship as well. Okay.
Okay, Nadine, I just wanted to say congratulations to you again on your first published book, and Masi for the story and how beautifully you have written it. Sharing it here with us has been just wonderful. There's a lot of great comments in the chat there. So we look forward to working with you here at the Clinchon government on the translation of the book into Clinchon. I'm really excited about that. And also possibly creating an audiobook. So those are things we have to look forward to. I think the audiobook, especially if it's in Clinchon, then the elders can also take part in it and learn from it. And somebody reading them a story for a change in the language would be really nice. So thank you for that opportunity and reaching out to us to help you with this. Congratulations again, Nadine. We're quite proud of you, and thank you for asking me to help you in this journey.
Thank you, Tammy. Masi, thank you so much. Thank you for everything that you have done, and thank you for being here and doing this.
You're welcome.
Very grateful. I want to thank John Bizot also for being the one who planted the seed for me to do this, and who really supported me throughout the entire time. So thank you very much. And there's so many people that I have several pages of people to thank, because there's so many people who have been involved. So thank you to all of you. And the same slideshow that we started, which is basically photographs that I took on the canoe trip. So it'll give you you'll see kind of the real life of it. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you all of you for being here and for commenting and for listening and for buying the book and for participating in this launch, for spending the time with us. Thank you so much.
Masi.
Masi. Okay.